What would happen if we could read the book of life, not as a book, but as computer code? It's a huge question, right? And it's at the very heart of this incredible field where two giants, biology and computer science, totally collide. Today, we're diving into bioinformatics.
So yeah, let's just put that question front and center. What happens when you treat DNA, the actual blueprint for a living thing, like it's a piece of software? This one idea, this one single shift in perspective, it's the foundation for everything we're about to get into.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll see how biology became a big data problem. Then we'll check out the Bioinformatician's Toolkit. We'll look at how this whole field just exploded onto the scene, its impact on your life, and finally, a really important part, what it can do and what it can't. Okay, first up, biology meets big data. So how on earth did biology, the study of living things, become a big data problem? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. Our technology for reading DNA got so good, so fast, that it completely outpaced our ability to make sense of it all. We weren't just getting data. We were getting hit with a fire hose of genetic information. It was just this massive, massive flood. Way too much for any human, or even a team of humans to handle on their own. And that's where bioinformatics comes in. So what is it really? At its most basic, it's this interdisciplinary field that uses computers to handle all that biological information. We're talking about storing it, finding it, messing with it, and sharing it. All the data about molecules like DNA, RNA, and proteins. Think of it like a superpowered digital library and an analysis lab all rolled into one, specifically for the building blocks of life.
Now, you might have heard another term thrown around, computational biology, and it's super easy to mix these two up. But here's the key difference. It's all about scope. Think of bioinformatics as being really zoomed in. It's focused on the molecular stuff, the sequences, structures, and functions of our genes and proteins. Computational biology, on the other hand, is the big umbrella that covers all biology that uses computers. That could be anything from modeling an entire rainforest ecosystem to tracking the genetics of a whole population.
But why? What's the ultimate goal of all this digital wrangling? Well, it's actually pretty simple, but also kind of profound. The whole point is to finally understand how a living cell really, truly works. It's about getting to peek under the hood and see all the tiny, intricate machinery in motion just by crunching the data on all its different parts.
All right, so if that's the what, let's talk about the how. What do bioinformaticians actually do? What's in their toolkit?
You can really think of the field as having two sides of the same coin. On one side, you've got the developers. These are the computer scientists, the software engineers, the people who are actually building the computational tools and the massive databases. And on the other side, you've got the users, the biologists and researchers who take those amazing tools and apply them to real biological data to unearth new knowledge.
So, what kind of analysis are we talking about here? It usually boils down to three main things. First up is sequence analysis. This is literally about reading the code, aligning all those A's, T's, C's, and G's to find genes and piece together whole genomes. Then you have structural analysis. This is all about figuring out the crazy, complex 3D shapes that proteins fold into. And that's critical, because in biology, a protein's shape determines what it does. And that leads right into the third one, functional analysis. This is the so what part, figuring out what all these genes and proteins are actually doing inside the cell.
Which leads us to the origin story. How did this field even come to be? Well, it wasn't just some academic idea cooked up in a lab. It was born out of a massive data explosion, a total necessity.
You can see the seeds being planted way back in the 60s and 70s. You had Margaret Dayoff creating the very first protein database in '65. Then came key algorithms for comparing sequences. Databases for protein structures popped up. The '80s gave us huge public databases like GenBank and powerful search tools like BLAST. But the real game changer, the thing that lit the rocket fuel under this whole field, was the Human Genome Project in the late '80s. For the very first time, we were trying to map our entire genetic code. The amount of data this thing was going to produce was just astronomical. There was no other way. Bioinformatics had to exist to make sense of it all.
Okay, that's a cool history lesson. But let's get to the important part. Why does any of this matter? To you, to us. Let's talk about how this goes from the lab and into your life.
And the impact is, well, it's huge. It's changing the game across so many industries. In drug design, it helps researchers find promising new drug candidates way faster than before. In agriculture, it's being used to engineer crops that can resist diseases or grow in tougher climates. But maybe the most revolutionary application is in our own healthcare. We're talking about personalized medicine. Just picture this. Instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, your doctor could sequence your individual genome. They could spot risks for certain diseases years before you ever feel a symptom. And if you do get sick, they could design a treatment tailored specifically to your unique genetic code. And look, this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy. This is the promise of bioinformatics, and it's already starting to happen.
Okay, but this brings us to a really, really important reality check. We have to talk about the power of this field, but also its limits. This is what we mean by intelligence, not proof.
It is absolutely crucial to get this. Bioinformatics doesn't replace the biologist in a lab. It's not about getting rid of test tubes and microscopes. Instead, think of it as a powerful partnership. The computer analysis is like the team's strategist. It sifts through all the data and points the researchers in the lab toward the most promising leads, the best hypotheses to actually go and test.
And this might be the single most important takeaway. A bioinformatic prediction is exactly that, a prediction. It is not a formal proof. These are highly educated guesses, incredibly powerful suggestions based on mountains of data, but they always need to be validated by experiments in the real world.
There's a great analogy for this that really helps make it clear. Think of the role of bioinformatics and molecular biology as being like intelligence gathering on a battlefield.
Right? It just clicks. If you have superior intelligence, you can see the enemy's strategy. You can spot their weaknesses. In biology, that means good bioinformatics can reveal how a disease works and point scientists right towards a potential cure. But what about poor intelligence? Well, if that information is wrong, if it's based on bad data, it can lead to disaster. It can send scientists down expensive, time-consuming dead ends, wasting years of effort and millions in funding.
So, where do we go from here? What's the future look like? Well, the next giant leap is a field called systems biology. The goal here is incredibly ambitious. It's not just about analyzing the individual parts anymore. It's about building complex mathematical models that can simulate an entire living cell. The dream is to turn biology from a science that describes what it sees into a science that can truly predict what will happen.
And that really leaves us with one final, kind of mind-blowing question. What is the ultimate endgame here? With all this data, all this computational power, could we one day build a complete, functioning digital twin of a human cell? Just let that sink in for a second.